Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. So a while ago, somebody posted into the narrative Discord that they wanted an idea on how to create a burning tent kind of effect. And I thought for this game here, this is an absolute great idea. So what the plan was, if I just find another tent, so these tents kind of up here, they wanted it where you could walk up to it, interact with it and light it on fire kind of thing. And I thought that'd be a really cool idea. So this series isn't going to be very long, but over the next couple of episodes, what we're going to do is add a sort of quest where we can walk up to a camp like this, but we're going to do it at night time. So we'll be using the ultra dynamic sky tutorial we did a few weeks ago, where you can walk up to a tent at night time, sneak up, and you can light it on fire. And then you can run around and light all the camp on fire and run away. But yeah, you'll be able to come and light things on fire. And I think it'll be a really cool effect. So let's get started. So what I'm thinking is there's loads of different ways we can do this, but the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to be using my interaction, so you will need some sort of interaction plugin, whether you use narrative interaction, you have your own, or you followed my previous tutorial. But I'm going to make it so you walk up and you light it on fire, and it just sparks a little fire wherever you are kind of thing. And I've got some animations that we can stick into it too. And then I'm thinking that fire will gradually grow, and over the course of that time, the tent will eventually burn, and then we'll play a sound effect or something, make it crumple down or whatever. And I think that'll be really cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically come to a new dev map, I think. Add in a basic tent blueprint, because I think at the moment these are just static meshes. So we'll create a basic blueprint of something you can interact with to burn it. And we'll work on, in this episode at least, burning it down. And then the next few episodes we'll look at adding the quest behind it, the dialogue, the night time, and proper turn it into a really cool quest we can start where somebody's like, oh, find a reason to burn this tent down kind of thing. So I'm going to just come to an empty level here. I'm going to basically add in a basic plane just as a floor. I'll set that to be 100 square. There we go. I'll come up and find my ultra dynamic sky. So we've got weather, blueprints, and I'll just drag in these two. I'll start that going. I'll click my weather. I'll just set it to clear skies because we'll not do the night time just yet. There we are. And then I'll add in my fire start. There's my fire start. We'll add that in just in the middle. Why not? I'll make sure I do select everything. This is something I keep forgetting to do. And I'll just make sure it's all in 0, 0, 0. Just makes life so much easier. Drag my player start up. And the final thing I'll do is just come and set my world settings, and I'll select my ALS. Then if I just click play, you see we've got a dead basic dev map. Something really, really quick. You click play, bang, it's on. Perfect. So then after my Unreal crashes several times, I'm going to finally managed to save the map, and I'm going to name it m_tent burning. Yeah. Fix up the redirector because we don't want that. There we go. The final thing I'm going to do is just set the material to be the prototype grid because it just looks... There we go. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come and create a new blueprint. So we'll go to my blueprints folder and I'll go into this. And I'll create a new folder inside here called burning tents. Inside here, I'll create another blueprint class, and I'll go actor, and I'll call it BP_burning tent. Yeah, we'll open this up. So I'm pretty sure I'm just going to be burning tents, but it'd be nice to have the ability to burn anything I want going forwards. So like we might have a tent, you might want to set fire to a storage unit, maybe it's slightly different, or you might want to set fire to a warehouse. It could be anything, but it'd be nice to have the option to burn anything. So instead of just calling it burning tent, what I'm actually going to do is rename it burning interaction, and then we can really just create child blueprints of it and burn anything we want, but all the code will be generic. So I'm going to come to class settings and just tick abstract at the top, and all this means is we simply just can't drag it in which is perfect. Another optimization trick is I'm going to come actually untick start with tick enabled, and what this is going to do is literally disable event tick. So I'm going to delete that off as well, and it's just one little thing that this burning tent is never going to be ticking. It's always going to be event driven. We're going to walk up to it and we're going to tell it we are now burning you. After that, we may actually start burning it depending how we want the fire to. So how do we want this burning interaction to work? So I guess we've got 3 steps that we need to look at. The first one is we actually need to be able to interact with it, which is something we can sort. The second step is we actually need the interaction to start the fire, and then we need it to eventually damage it to the point it dies, or it crumples, it does whatever it needs to do. You could build in the ability for your AI enemies to go and put it out and stuff if you want like a quick mini game. I'm not going to go that far. I'm literally just going to go up, tell it to start burning. So let's actually create the interactable. So if you have your own interaction now, or your own interface, however you create interactions with it, we basically need the ability to interact with this blueprint. So we can tell it to start burning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my blueprints folder and then into my narrative interactions, because I'm using narrative interaction. If you're using my previous interaction tutorial, just add the interface to your burning interaction. But for me, I'm going to create a new blueprint class and I'm going to search for narrative interactable, and I'll click the component, I'll click select, and I'll call it interactable underscore burning, and I'll open this up. I'll delete the begin play and the ticks off. We don't want that on it. And then I will come and override the can interact, where I'll just tell it by default you can interact with it. So I'll just tick it, and then I will come and override the on interact, and this is where we actually start the interaction. So this now comes down to how you want to handle it. So I actually have some burning animations. Let's go and have a look at these. There's loads of different ones, but we've basically got the matches ones. So as you can see, if I just come here and I simulate this so you can see the animation, we can now play this animation that I've made where you'll walk up and you'll light the tent on fire at the bottom and you'll stand back, and it will basically, that's where we can start it. And I've got a bunch of these different animations here. And I've also got one for spell casting. So if you have a game where you spell cast, we can use those as well. So you can see I've activated a rune and now I'm blasting fire. So we could do a flamethrower effect. The final batch I've got is lighting torches. You can see I'll grab a big torch out of my pocket, I'll light it on fire, and I'll light it using that. So very Tomb Raider-ish style, that one. So I'm thinking, when we interact with it, we tell our player to play one of the random interactions. We could even do it as in, if you've got a torch, use the torch. If you haven't, do it a different way. We'll just say pick a random animation for now. And then at the same time, we'll also tell the tent to start burning. So we'll use the interactable to tell the player to play the burning animation. And the good thing is, if we do it generically, we can also apply this to NPCs. So if you've got comrades, they can go and burn it as well, kind of thing. And then at a certain point in the animation, we will then tell the tent, okay, we've now lit the fire, start being on fire. And the tent will go off and control its blazing, its health and stuff like that. So we need a way to actually just tell the player to start playing the animation. So I'm going to drag off the interactor here and I'm going to cast it to a character. So the interactor is a type of pawn in narrative. So if we go and have a look at, say, the player for this instance, you can see we've got an interface called BPI character. And on here, we do actually have a get body mesh that returns a skeletal mesh, which is absolutely perfect for us playing animation. So all I've done for this is I've set up an interface called BPI character and I've applied it to my player and to my NPC. I've added a function called get body mesh, which returns a mesh. On my player, so my ALS character or your NPCs, all I've done in the interfaces is made it return the body. And the body in this case is my Cinti character here, but it'll be whatever your character is. So now what this means is we don't need to cast to a specific character. We can literally drag off of this pawn and say get body mesh, and it will use the interface to keep it completely separate. So if you apply this interactable and make a demon with 15 arms come up to it, you won't need to cast to that demon with 15 arms, just use the interface, which is very, very nice, very optimized. And then from here, we can now just tell it to play the animation. So I'm going to come and choose play montage instead of animation, and then we need to actually tell it which montage to take. So I'm going to come and promote this to a variable, and then I'm going to delete it off so we've got it partially set up. I'm going to rename it to burning montages, and instead of using it as a standard anim montage, I'm actually going to come and click it and change it to a soft object reference. Yeah? And this just means it's not keeping all the animations in memory all at the same time. And then I'm also going to come and set it to a array. So the reason we're using the soft object reference is if you had a tent here with 5 animations, a different tent over here with 5 more, a tent over there with 5 more, since those interactions are live on the screen waiting for us, it would instantly go and load all the animations in memory. We don't need them at that point, and we definitely don't need all of the animations from every instance of it in memory. So we're using a soft object reference, so we can randomly pick one and then specifically tell Unreal, right, now load this animation. we need it for a bit. And then Unreal's garbage collection will deal with getting rid of it later as well. So it's super efficient. And the array is just so we can randomize between them. So now that we've got an array, let's get a random burning animation. And in this case, I am just going to randomize between some animations. I might stick all of them in, I might stick a few of them in, I don't know. If you want the ability to pick an animation depending on what weapon you've got, so torch burning, normal burning, spell burning, you could just either create 3 batches of arrays and then in the interaction check if you've got a torch, check if you've unlocked the spells, or you could do something else. There's many ways you could do it. For me, I'm just going to randomize over this. So I'll get it, I'll drag it in, I'll drag off and do random array item, and then you'll see we won't be able to plug this into it because it'll try to instantly convert it, which isn't right. I'm going to drag this across here like so, and then from here, I'm going to drag off and do async load asset. And this just basically tells Unreal, in the background, don't lock the thread, don't glitch the animation, the screen or anything. Just let it load in the background. And then once it's loaded, now I'm going to connect this over here. And another option you've got is actually to drag off and just call resolve. It does the same thing, look. But the key thing you have to do is just to make sure you have this async load asset in first. Because if you notice, if you hover over it, it says it will resolve it, but at the end, if the object isn't loaded in memory, it will return none. Meaning, if you just call resolve and it's not being told to load into memory, it will pass none into here and throw you an error. You don't want that. And then just make sure you connect it to the completed, not the exec up here. The exec up here will continue whilst it's still loading in memory. So now we've got a random animation. We tell the character whoever interacts with it to start burning it. We're on a good roll so far. So the next step is for us to actually tell the tent to start burning. And for this, we actually need to modify the montages in our burning to trigger something called a notifier, which I don't know if we've looked on the channel before, right? But it's basically at some point in the animation, we can tell Unreal to send a signal out, almost a message. So basically at roughly this point, we will now tell Unreal, okay, send a signal out saying burning has begun. And then as our character continues animating, we can run off and do some code to say light the tent on fire. It's super, super nice to do. So the only thing I need to do is to actually port these animations over to my Cinti character, because at the moment they're only on the mannequin ones. So this is really easy to do. I'm just going to go into my folder where I want to store it. I'm going to create a new folder called fire starting. And inside here, I'm just going to create another new folder called matches, because that's what I'm using on the test. And then I will come and highlight all of these animations. I will right click and do retarget animations. I believe this retarget animations tool is only available in 5.4. If you don't have this, then all you'll have to do is come and find or create your animation retargeter. So I've got my retargeters here, and you'll just have to run it through there. That's the only difference. But Unreal's got a nice little tool built into it now. So I'll come and select my target skeletal mesh. I'll just come and pick my standard knight from the Polygon Elven pack. Auto regenerate targeter. You can equally pass it a retargeter. So I know I've got my Manny to my Polygon Elven. If we click that one, then you'll see it'll nicely do it. I can then come and search for my assets. So I've got Firelighting 1. You can see, yeah, that works. Look, works nicely. There we go. So I can come and select all my Firelighting ones. Then I can click Export Animations. And I can come into my Animations folder, Polygon Elven, Mocap, Fire Starting Matches, and click Export. Do I want to include reference assets? Yes, sure, why not? And there we go. So now if I come into my Polygon Elven pack, you can see I've got all my different animations ready. The reason we have to move it across is this Manny skeleton isn't going to work on my pack. If you've got a metahuman, some other assets, just make sure you set up your retargeter. So now what I can do is I can highlight all these animations, right click, and I can do create anim montage. If you highlight them all, it will nicely create you a montage for every single one, which is very nice. And I'll save all of that. Now this is the bit where it gets a bit tedious. I will speed through this as I'm talking because it's going to take forever, but I'll do the first one in real time. All you need to do, while he's got 2 giant spears in his hands, is basically drag across on the montage to the point where you want the fire to start, the signal to go out. Now, you know, it comes down, he lights it for a second, right about here, then what I'm going to do is on notifiers number 1, I'm going to come into the middle where I want it, and I'm going to right click, add notify, and I'm going to choose montage notify here, and I'll click it. I can drag it where I want it to be, so I know I want it to be there, and then I'm going to come and name it up here, burning started, and that's pretty much all I'm going to do. You can add as many as you want here, you can have different layers if you want to, but that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to hit Ctrl-Shift-S to save, and that's all you need to do for each one here. So I'm going to come across to where it needs to burn. So on this one, he flicks to match, so about here. I'm going to right click, montage notify, and I'm going to call it the same. And we basically have to do that for each montage, so we can tell Unreal when to send the signal. And that's it. There is all my montages set up to start the burning starter command here. So now how do we use it? Very, very simply. If you've actually got the play montage one here, don't get the other one where it doesn't give you the options. That's not going to work. And all I'm going to do is drag off notify name, and I'm going to add a switch on name. I'm going to disconnect it from that node and connect it to notify begin. And then I'm going to untick has default because we don't need it to have a default pin. I'll add a new pin called burning started, just like that. And now what this is going to do is play the random montage. And when that montage signals out burning started, we can now do whatever we want, which in this case is telling our tent to start the burning interaction. So how do we tell the tent to start the burning? We'll create an interface for it. Nice and easy. So I'll come to my blueprints folder. I'll come to my interfaces folder, and I'll right click blueprint interface, and I'll call it BPI burning interaction. I'll open it up, and I'll simply just create a function called start burn and compile and save. That's pretty much it. You could add other stuff in if you wanted to say which character started it, if you wanted to log a notification or something. For me, they're basic, more than fine. I'll come to my BP burning interaction, class settings, go to my interface, and I'll search for BPI underscore burning interaction, compile, and then you'll see in the interfaces we now have start burn. So back on our interactable burning, we'll just right click and do get owner, which because my interaction system, what I'm using, narrative interaction, acts as a component that we connect to it, I can do get owner. However you handle your interaction, you just need to get that blueprint, and then we can simply call start burn like that and pass the message. Connect it to the burning started, and we're done. I can hit compile and save on that one. And back on the burning interaction, for now, I'll just drag off and add a print statement saying burning started, and I'll hit compile and save. And then finally, let's add the interactable burning to it, like so. And then you can see we've got some default settings in here, which isn't quite right for this interactable. So I'll go back to my interactable and I'll click class defaults, and let's change some of the default settings. So burning montages, by default, we do actually want our montages in there. So I will come and add the players montages. If you do end up having different skeletal meshes where you need to each have their own versions of burning animations, you can basically just create profiles of burning animations on the character instead, and like have gameplay tags where you tell the character you are burning, play these animations, and then you can do different animations per character. So now that we've got the burning animations defaulted, let's add the burning interactable text. So let's just call it tent by default, and instead of interact, we'll call it set fire. That sounds cool. And we'll hit compile and save. And now back on here, you can see we have a default of tent set fire with the burning. So let's actually drag this into the world and give it a basic test so far. So I'll come back to my BP burning interaction. I'll right click and choose create child blueprint class, and I'll call it burning interaction underscore tent. I'll open this up. So how do we trigger it? So we first need to add a static mesh so we can actually see the tent. And inside here, let's go and pick a tent. Have I got a good one? So I know it's in the Polygon Elven pack. No, maybe it's in the Polygon Knights pack. So it was in the Fantasy Kingdom pack. There we go. We've got a basic 10. I'm going to come and actually disable the collision on this because it's going to have some weird collision that's overly complex for what I need. So I'm going to disable it. I'm going to disable generate overlap events because we don't need to do that. And I'll also come and disable the nav mesh just for now. And then what I'm going to do instead is actually add a box collision, because then it's a lot more refined as a better collision path. Now I'll scale it up and just make sure it covers the tent in this case. And I'll make sure it's quite big so you can't randomly jump up on it either, because we don't want them climbing on top of an invisible tent. Yeah, just like that. And then what I will do is come to the collision of this, and instead I will just set it to block all light. Also make sure nav mesh is there just so the NPCs don't run through it. Perfect. You can see start with tick enabled is automatically disabled because we don't need that. And that should be it. So if we drag this blueprint into our world now, we should in theory be able to tell it to start the burning. Oh, so you can see we've got a few issues with positioning, so let's just go and fix that. I want it to be touching the floor a little bit, but let's actually give it a try now. So I'm going to come out of simulate, and if we walk up to it, you should be able to see it say tent set fire. Awesome. If I press E, we should now see at the top left corner, it should say something. You can see we're playing an animation, that's good. The montage is played and then burning started. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. How cool's that? I forgot we did the animations, to be honest. I wasn't expecting that. So we walk up, we press E, you can see a random montage will play, we'll set the fire and we'll walk away. There we go. Now there is some things we have to fix. We actually do have to spawn the fire and tell it to start firing up. That's something we'll just do in a minute. But also if I start the montage, we could just walk away like this, look. Whee! So we need to wait to also disable the character as he's feeling the fire, and then we'll get access back. So 2 things we need to fix. We need to stop him moving, which is dead easy to do. We also need to stop him from being able to press E over and over and over again, because we're just playing loads of animations at that point. That's not what we want. So when we disable the character, we'll also disable the interaction so they can't keep playing it. And then we'll light a basic fire and we'll go from there. So back on our interaction, burning here. So what I'm going to do is move the body mesh up, and I'm actually going to move all this across. And before we actually start any of this, I'm outright going to disable the character at this point and say no more input. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the beginning and I'm going to right click, get player controller, and then I'm simply going to drag off of this and do disable input. Now there are a couple of ways where you may not want to use this node. This node is going to stop any controls at all. If you still want to be able to use your mouse to look around but you can't move, then you're going to need to build something into your character that stops the keyboard from working on the movement or the keys you don't want. So for example, I don't want the ability to open my quest journal or my inventory while I'm lighting a fire. That doesn't make any sense. I'm happy to just disable the input with the ability knowing that I can't use my mouse anymore. If you want it, then you're going to probably be better adding a boolean to your character or a gameplay tag saying they're in the middle of an action or it's interruptible action or something, and then just whenever you press any of the keys, you say you can't do it if you've got. Gameplay ability system is something we're going to rejuvenate this game with when I learn more about it. And the only thing now we've done this is we need to re-enable it. So after we've started the burn, so what I'm going to do is on this montage, on completed section, drag this down, I'm going to paste the player controller in, and I'm simply going to choose enable input. So now we've done this, we should freeze our character in place so they shouldn't be able to move when we do it. You can see now I can run up, I can start the fire, and you can see I'm pressing the keyboard, nothing is happening, I can't move. And then once it's finished, I will now regain movement. Perfect. It may be sometimes that you instead don't want to wait for the full montage to work. Like there, I'm probably going to be happier having it there actually and giving access back instead of waiting for the entire thing. So what I'll do on this specific instance is we could create a notifier here called burning ended or player regains control. And then instead of running it here on completed, you could just add another switch statement here. But now I'm okay with just wait for the entire montage and then go from there. But if you want to touch it up, make it that much more polished, that's what you can do. Now the next thing I wanted to do is, even though you can't press the E key to interact with it, I don't want it on screen anymore. So I'm actually going to tell it to disable the interaction on the player so they can't interact with anything. I'm going to come back to my interactable burning, and you see you've got this interaction comp variable here, at least on mine. And I can disable this so it won't work anymore. At the end, I can enable it again. However, if you've got your own interaction, you may need to find a way around this to basically just disable interacting with anything. Gameplay tags again would work great for this. So just before we disable the player's input, I'm actually going to, you know what, I'm going to drag off this interaction comp and I'm going to do deactivate here, which is just a normal function built into Unreal, and it'll deactivate the component to stop it working. And then after all of this, I'm going to drag this down here, and thanks to a good friend of mine, Hush Hush, taught me a new hotkey in Unreal, blew my mind. I'm going to drag this node down and press the R key to add a point like that, so we can nicely organize it as we go, look. And then I'll say, we'll just do it up here for now, and I'll drag off and I'll do to reactivate the component like so. And then for some reason that's messed up. I'm just going to connect this activate over to this input here, and I'm going to come and drag this node all the way down here and then connect it up to target here. I would stick this in a function, but then we can't do the async load, so it's, yeah, I'm just going to do it like this for now. It's fine. It's a bit messy, but it will work, and it's not, that's the input. I'll hit compile and save, and let's try it now. This time it should disable the input UI until we finished it, then it should put it back. You can see the input has now disappeared. I can keep pressing E, nothing's going to happen, and then he'll light the fire. You'll see burning starts at the top, and then we regain control. And we can set fire to it again, but that's where we'll deal with it to stop it being set on fire. So just to wrap this tutorial up, what I'm thinking we'll do is we'll spawn a basic fire just on it, and then in the next tutorial we'll look at spreading the fire, making it destroy the tent, stopping you interacting with it over and over again. So I'm going to use some particles to do this because they'll always look really, really nice as fire effects. So if I just come and search for fire in here, and I'm going to tick Cascade, Particle System, Niagara, and Niagara System. You see, I've got a few basic ones built in. I know the Cascade system is a bit legacy, but it's the only one I've got into it, so I'm going to use that for now. You see, I've got a basic fire here. The Unreal Marketplace has a bunch of different fire effects. And then you see, the plan with mine is I'll start it off small, wherever you light it, in the middle. So the plan for the next tutorial is I'm actually going to start it off small, pretty much like that, where you can see it starting to burn. And then over the lifetime of it burning, I'm actually going to increase the size of it gradually to the point where it's fully engulfed the tent. We'll add some sound effects, some crackling, and then eventually the tent will just collapse in on itself, and then we'll put some smouldering ruins there and we'll pretty much extinguish the fire. That's the plan. So what I'm going to do is on BP burning interaction, instead of burning started, we're going to drag off and simply type spawn emitter at location. The emitter template we want, in my case, is my Cascade particle system, or whatever fire you've got. I've just done a quick search and you can see you've got some fire effects there, some UI renderers, some other basic ones like that. You can search for also fire if you really want to, and search for the free section. So you've got a bunch of different fire stuff you can use. Realistic starter effects, quite good. So apply whatever emitter you want, and then the location, I will just drag off and do get actor location. We could be very clever and actually get the specific position of the player's hand and light it there. My game's not that realistic, but if you want to go that route, then you just pass in the player who started the burn, get their list of their bones, get the hand that's lit the fire, and then go from there. Rotation scale I'll leave as is. Auto destroy, I will tell it not to auto destroy. I want it to loop the fire over and over again, and will handle the destroy after the tent is lit on fire. Pooling method, I'm not going to be doing it that often that I want to pool it, so we're going to ignore that. The only other thing I will do is I will come and promote this to a variable called current fire, because then we can actually use it and do whatever we want to with it later, such as destroy it. So let's give it a try. So we can now run up. You can see it's at night time. We crouch. I forgot how to crouch in ALS, but you can see we can walk up. We can light the tent on fire. He'll bend down, and then he will light the fire by throwing the match onto it. And then you can see the smouldering has started, and there is our fire started. The tent is on fire. Doesn't it look cool? But imagine how cool it's going to look in the next tutorial. When we make it start growing naturally, we say you can't reset the fire to it because it's already on fire. We add crackling and sounds. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any improvements that you would do to it, please let me know below. I think it's going to look really, really cool once we get it up and working, and we'll make the fire gradually scale itself. We're not going to go into the depths of Far Cry where it follows trails and stuff. I'm literally just going to increase the scale, but I think the effect will work, and then we'll do everything we need for it. So thanks for watching. If you want the animations, I will put some of the animations for free in the description so you can get a hold of them, and I will put the Cinti packs and the Mani packs in for these burning animations. I'll put all of the different ones in. That one's a testing one I was playing with. It will be available on my Patreon on the lowest tier of £1, where you'll get access to all the mocap animations. There will be another pack upcoming soon of idle animations where the guards will throw cigarettes, have a pee, general idle guardy stuff. So please consider supporting me on Patreon. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time.